Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. I am here to talk about Antoine Semenyo and who United may have to turn to because David Ornstein hit us with a little bit of a bomber last night in terms of which direction it seems that Semenyo was heading. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's Manchester United. We have known for the last few days that Manchester United and Manchester City were pretty much neck and neck in terms of their pursuit of him, with Liverpool kind of putting fleeting interest there that kind of accelerated a little bit because of Isak's injury, but they never really got themselves in the mix. Arsenal haven't ever really been there. I don't think they've got the funds for it. They spunked it on Gyökeres in the summer. Tottenham's name was kind of thrown in there, but obviously they can't really compete with the big boys for players. You obviously know that. It's Tottenham. And then Chelsea. How shameless are Chelsea, by the way? I know we've basically been rejected, but Chelsea kind of briefed out there to Ornstein that they were interested. They reached out, and then literally an hour later, there was a follow-up article saying Chelsea have pulled out of it, thinking they believe in their winger depth and they aren't going to pursue it anymore, which was basically a briefing and code for they got their ass rejected by Semenyo and tried to save face. But anyway, it looks like he's heading towards Manchester City. And when we found out that we were pretty much in a race with City, you still have this kind of confidence about United possibly getting the job done because United still have this incredible pull that we all know about. And we are a bigger club than Manchester City. And some players kind of have an affinity still, especially when they're in the 20s, of knowing what United once were rather than what we are now. And some also have this kind of character element of it. I know it's ego as well, of believing that they know United are in a transition, that United are a little bit of a project now, and they kind of want to be part of it where they can be remembered as being a player that has catapulted United back to former glory. There is that aspect of it, almost like that saviour complex. But also you get to live in Manchester, one of the best cities in Europe. I'm just going to be biased and say that. And then you've also got, financially, can earn pretty decently as well. I think United and Ineos have kind of corrected that wage structure element of it. But you still think there's a chance, especially because I thought United were a little bit more desperate than City were to sign him. And Semenyo probably has a little bit more assurances in terms of his playing time and his standing within the squad if you went to United rather than City, who have a lot of forwards, a lot of wingers. Obviously you got the likes of Doku, Cherki can play out there, Foden, got Marmoush who's on 300k a week that can play out there. You got Oscar Bob who plays on the wing as well. You've got Savinho, whereas there isn't that much competition for him. And I know he's a left winger in terms of what his actual position is finalised as. But he actually has a lot of versatility about him. He can play up front as well. He can play centrally. He can play on the right. He probably could have done a job in certain games as a left wing back as well, because his defensive metrics and numbers are really good for a winger as well. And for 65 million is what his quoted release clause is. There probably isn't a much better market opportunity because it's that pre-peak age that we talk about where he probably still even has another level to go, whilst also already being one of the best wingers in the league, in the best league in the world. And a lot of people are talking about the likes of Picola and these names out there. But to be fair, in terms of pedigree and quality of league that they're playing in, and we see Semenyo has one of the most desirable assets that you can literally have as a forward player, especially nowadays, and that's ball striking, especially off both feet. A player with that, especially with his pace and power, they're game changers. And that is something that you almost can't teach. Ball striking, trust me, believe me, I know you can teach it when you grow up, when you're developing, do you know what I mean, as a young lad. But when you're a professional footballer, I say this, after 21, 22, I think a lot of development comes from up here and consistency rather than actually getting miles better at things, especially when it comes to stuff like ball striking, which is sometimes inherently technical. But I was going to say it's like biometric as well, and I'm just using that as an excuse because I was never able to get much better at shooting. It's definitely a weaker trait of mine. But anyway, I thought Semenyo would have been a great coup for United because he has that versatility where he could have played anywhere in the front line for United as well as left wing back. But he's also good enough where if United were to pivot away from this system of formation, he could slot in perfectly as well as an out-and-out wide man. But this is what's been reported by David Ornstein, and it's literally got it on my phone now. It's Antoine Semenyo's preference is an exclusive from Ornstein. Yesterday, he said join Man City in January. Nothing formal until market opens, but Bournemouth attacker favours Man City. Man United pushed hard and never planned to use 25-year-old as a wing-back, but winter switch was always tough for United. And a very important element of this was they never planned to actually use him as a left wing-back, which is something I was telling you for weeks. A lot of people disagreed with me, saying obviously he's going to play left wing-back, he's not going to play anything else. Semenyo was never going to be a left wing-back. If you're one of the best left wingers and best output forwards right now in the Premier League over the past 2 seasons, why on earth, when you've got all the big clubs going after you in the league, would you go to Manchester United to be a left wing-back? It made no sense anyway, especially from a career perspective. So the reports that you did hear that United were willing to kind of be malleable with their system and Amorim to accommodate him if he did come, to play a back four so he could play out wide as would have been natural to him. That made more sense. This whole idea of signing Semenyo as a winger and then kind of like shoehorning him to be a left wing back and he'd be okay with that, I thought that was nonsense anyway. But it seems to be formality anyway because he's favouring City. Pep Guardiola, chance to play with Pep, they're actually challenging for trophies. So there's a certain desirability there that United don't currently have because we aren't exactly performing. We're a bit of a sleeping giant. We're inconsistent. We're not challenging for silverware or the big honours. So it seems this is where we're going to lose out. And I think United can kind of lean on our name in terms of our pull to an extent. But the longer we look inadequate, the longer we end up underperforming, and the longer we end up looking incompetent, the more our pull is going to slightly diminish. And I'm going to start losing out on players like Semenyo, who I think is a quality player, even though I've been one of those that's been clamouring for a midfielder instead. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. Because I thought, you know what, no script, I never have one. I just come on here and I just brainstorm. I kind of just galaxy brain a little bit. Almost like thinking out loud. And I'm thinking alternatives. Because United do really need to dip into the market in January if you want to make better use of this season. And I think a midfielder would have been the perfect option. You're hearing the likes of Conor Gallagher and even Rúben Neves, who's had 2 years out of there's a couple years, might be a little bit more than that, out of elite football playing in Saudi. And you're just thinking, who can United actually bring in the midfield in the January? That'd be worthwhile because you've got the names out there for the big money moves in summer, like Baleba and Adam Wharton, who I thought was sensational yesterday. And you got Elliot Anderson. But realistically, these aren't players that are going to be signable in Jan, especially from a financial perspective, because whatever they'd cost in the summer, they'll always cost a lot more in January. That's just how it works. Because the other team has the leverage of you're kind of derailing their season a little bit. It's mid-season. They probably don't have the scope to replace him. And they can't exactly plan for it. So it always adds a good little 10, 15, 20 million more on that you might get from him in summer. So that's where you got to start looking and being a little bit cleverer, because that's what United attempted to do last January when he signed Djaoui, which is you go for a kind of a young, unpolished diamond, a bit of a raw player that could be excellent, but then you also then have the pressure on you to develop them properly, to platform them properly, and to kind of instill the confidence in them so they can actually become the player you're expecting them to be, which hasn't materialised in a year for Patrick Djaoui, who seems to have gone backwards, has looked a little bit too raw and unrefined, having to develop on the job. Playing for a United team that has a lot of scrutiny, a lot of jeopardy, and a lot of pressure, where young players are either going to sink or swim, and what you've seen for the past 10 years or so is more likely than not is they sink. And that speaks to the environment needing to improve as well. So a name that's been thrown out there, and that's the mystery player on as a possible replacement and alternative, and this is a mystery player that's put on the thumbnail, and that's the Leipzig young 19-year-old winger, Yan Diomande, who's become a little bit of the flavour of the month. A little bit of that throwback winger, electric, pace, dribbling 1v1 ability. Something that is invaluable in the Premier League, but the only question mark was, can it translate to him being able to be that electrifying and to beat Premier League level fullbacks 1v1? Because from what I have seen, watching football in the Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, Ligue 1, Liga NOS, even in the Champions League, is dribble success or the ability to consistently beat players in the Premier League has become increasingly difficult, because the athleticism in defenders nowadays is probably as athletic as it has been ever. So that would be something for him to possibly be challenged, which is why leaning towards Premier League proven attackers seems to be the way to go, because you've seen him do it. And he won't be a left wing back. I know apparently he's played a couple of games there before, but once again, when he makes his big move, Diomande, if that's somewhere that United pivot towards, is can you sell him the idea of you're a left winger, you're playing extremely well, you've got around 6 goals and a couple assists so far for Leipzig as a 19-year-old in the Bundesliga. Why don't you come to United and be a left wing back? I don't think that would be the biggest sell either. But he is an exciting young project, and I do think United have a little bit of a concerning issue right now. And I know everyone goes, you got to buy players for Amorim, you got to fit the system, etc. But United have a severe lack of out-and-out winger profiles in the squad. Apart from Amad Diallo and Mbeumo, who you could say are wide men, we don't have one on the other side. Cunha's an inside forward, number 10, false 9. Mason Mount is definitely more of an inside, call them wing fielders. And it has kind of give our system and our squad a little bit of an imbalance. And I think United's whole ethos and United's way has always been about having exciting wingers. Players that can get you off their seat, wide men that got pace, wide men that beat players, take people out of the game. You've got Cunha that can do that, but he likes to do it in the central areas rather than out wide, which is a little bit different. He's more of a power ball carrier. I think United should invest in one like Diomande, who could have the versatility to play inside, also play as a left wing back, or if the system starts to change, because this is the point of the matter. It seems as though there has been talk, I don't know whether it's between Wilcox or with Amorim, that a formation system shift or an alteration is occurring where maybe we could be playing back 4 in some games. Maybe we could be playing with 3 up top, where it could be playing with wide men. And also, I think when you recruit, we've been saying this since Ineos and Amorim have kind of been married together, is I do have a little bit of concern with specialist recruitment. I think you have to recruit where if you sign a wide man, they have to have the ability to play inside, but also play on the outside as well, and kind of have that ability to play in different systems and not just one. Because what happens then is if Amorim ends up being sacked or ends up leaving, is you end up having a couple of players that are specialists, and then when you go to a back 4 and then you've got player 3 and you need a wide man, they can't exactly fit in. Because people already have that question mark with Cunha. If you play 4-2-3-1, he's not really an out-and-out wide man. He's an inside midfielder the same way Mason Mount is, and then then you've got this whole question marks over where does everyone fit. But Yan Diomande is someone that excites me. Would a United move at 19 be a little bit too big for him and a little bit too soon, especially with the pressure that will come with it? Shiny new toy syndrome at United ends up coming with a lot of pressure, actually, because United are desperate to get back to being actually good again. But I wouldn't mind it. But it just depends on the cost. That's what it depends on. But when you've lost Rashford and then you've lost Anthony, and then you've lost Garnacho on that side. United don't really have an out-and-out left winger in the squad who could be that outlet as a left wing back if the system remains the same, but also in games if it changes, it can play out there as well. Because if we would go to a 4-3-3, who really plays out-and-out left wing? Put Cunha, Mount, are they really touchline players? And if they do drift inside, the outlet then becomes Dorgu, who shows that he's a little bit tepid in terms of his final third play. And this kind of brings me to thinking maybe a midfielder should be the way to go. Got my eye on the likes of Lamine Camara as well from Monaco. Could he be an option? Djaoui Cissé from Rennes. These young midfield budding stars in Ligue 1, in the French league, they're the way to go. Because it's the closest league to the Premier League in terms of the physicality requirement. And I think that is a big reason why Ligue 1 could be a bit of a haven if you want to sign a midfielder. And no, Ugarte doesn't count as a Ligue 1 export because he was a Ligue 1 export that went to Ligue 1, couldn't hang in the French league for a season, and then United took the bait. And I think United need to correct it because the midfield has been disregarded for too long. So I know Diomande almost feels like a little bit of an alternative for Semenyo. But honestly, I wouldn't be mad at United going left wing as well as a marquee midfielder in the summer. And in January, going for a midfield alternate option that might not cost as much. Rúben Neves, maybe you can question marks about obviously his mobility and his fit in the system as good as he is on the ball. What level is he at now after spending a couple of years at Saudi? Can you go for a little bit of a Lamine Camara angle? Could you have a little bit of a poke at a Cissé from Rennes? These exciting young players in Ligue 1 in the midfield area. I think that's where United might pivot to. But let me know what you think. Did you want Semenyo anyway? How big of a miss is it? Should United go for Diomande? Should United go for another young left winger? Should United go for a midfielder? Something that we are avoiding. I know United are going for it 2026, but it depends on who we're competing against for the likes of Adam Wharton, Anderson and Baleba. Will United have European football to kind of entice these players come summer as well? That's another gamble. Or should United see for a little 30, 35 million or maybe a little bit less, shop in Ligue 1 and find a diamond? But let me know what you think. But anyway, I'll be back with a review and then not a review. I'm going to be up for a preview first for the Newcastle game. Then a review after the Newcastle game on Boxing Day. But it's Christmas Eve. Make sure you all have a Merry, Merry Christmas. Make sure you do also subscribe. Hype the video. Road to 10k. Thanks for the support. And I'll see you next time.